Shabbat Shalom. And welcome again to our guests, Father John, Father Michael, Markian, members of this extraordinary choir. Thank you for praying with us, for standing with us, for being with us on this Shabbat, on this very special Shabbat, this very special moment. Friends, within the last 2 days, we celebrated the beginning of the month of Adar. And the month of Adar traces its roots to the very early second millennium before the Common Era in Babylon, in what is today the south of Iraq and east of Iran, and west of Iran, forgive me, the south of Iraq and west of Iran, in a culture wherein there developed a 12-month system, wherein the month of Adaru was the last lunar month. The month of Adaru would be the last of the sacred months of the year. And the god regent of the month of Adaru, according to the Babylonians, was the deity, the god, the, if you like, spirit, malevolent spirit of Ishum. And Ishum was represented by the flood waters, the waters of destruction, following the months of winter. The dark waters were the waters of Ishum. And it came to be that around the 18th century before the Common Era, about 1800 years before the Common Era, in other words, about 4,000 years ago, the glowing fish of Marduk appeared in those dark, destructive waters. And it is from these fish of Marduk that eventually the sign of the month of Adaru, later the Jewish month, the Hebrew month of Adar, would become the fish, or Pisces. And those fish, those glowing fish of Marduk, were fish that represented light, that represented hope, that represented goodness, that represented the human potential in the context of the dark waters, the destructive waters of Ishum, this malevolent deity. So the month of Adaru, the Hebrew month of Adar that we would later adopt, would become that month that on the one hand was the month of those forces of nature that were destructive, and on the other hand, that glimmer of light, of goodness, and of hope, and of the human potential. The old Babylonians and the Hebrews after them believed that the struggle between these forces occurred within each and every human, within the human heart. And it is precisely this struggle that we again bring to life in the holiday of Purim, which is the holiday we celebrate in the month of Adar. And it is the light of Marduk, our Mordechai, that eventually overcomes that darkness, that destructive force, that hatred, that primordial force that we all fight. Friends, a year ago today, the world witnessed the dark forces, the flood of dark forces in the invasion of Ukraine. The forces of brutality, the forces of indiscriminate use of force against civilians, the forces of sexual violence, the forces of the tearing of children from their parents, the forces that have brought about death, injury, expulsion, the forces that have brought about so much destruction, the movement of millions of people, now refugees, the destruction of what had been one of the most fertile, beautiful parts of Europe. And in the midst of this destruction, in the midst of this horror, in the midst of this evil, we have also witnessed the resilience, the strength, the determination, the hope, the human potential in all of those who have stood up for freedom, who have stood up for goodness, who have stood up for the defense of their ideals. We say that when Adar enters, we are commanded to engage in the promulgation or the advancement of joy. And we are commanded to do so in the month of Adar in a way that specifically allows us to relate to other people, by giving gifts to others, by supporting the needy, by doing things in community, by standing up with each other, because that is the path to the light of redemption. And so, my friends, and especially my friends from the Ukrainian community, we are proud to stand with you today. We are proud to stand with you today, recognizing the dark waters that have flooded your country, our consciousness, and our world, and together to pray for the light of hope and of goodness and of redemption. And may that redemption come by the time we mark the next year's Adar. May peace, may the light of goodness allow for these terrible, destructive waters of war to recede. May we experience the light of peace and of redemption. Father John, would you kindly join me?
We spoke this morning, and I learned something from Rabbi Cohen. What does it mean when the rabbi takes off his watch and puts it on the pulpit? For those who don't know what he told me, it means nothing. Dear Rabbi Cohen, Robert Klein, beloved Cantor, brothers and sisters of this congregation, a Ukrainian priest always greets people with the words, "Glory to Jesus Christ." It's a tradition, even on the street. And the people ask and say, "Glory forever." Yesterday, I went into the parish kitchen. The women and men were working there, making pierogies. And I said the traditional Christian greeting. And then I said, "Shabbat Shalom." And to my shock, her name is Lida Sereda, said, "Elikem Shalom." I'm not sure if that's the proper pronunciation. A peaceful night. This is the second time I've had the opportunity to be in this temple. I was here in August for the Bat Mitzvah of Shana, Brian and Yelena's daughter. I am very close to her, the community. I have celebrated Passover for over 20-some years. During the COVID virus, my wife and daughter and I had a Seder at home because Yelena gave me the Haggadah. And I sang the Doli, Dayanu, and those other songs. However, this evening's service is on a much sadder occasion of the past visits. We wish it was unnecessary. But because of a very sick and deranged individual, genocidal acts are committed. Freedom-loving people have, as Rabbi Cohen said, have been displaced. Unimaginable suffering of our people. The United Nations, 141 countries voted at the UN for Russia to stop the aggression. European bishops asked Putin to stop this madness. War must unite humanity. And Pope Francis said, "End this absurd and cruel war." Yet Putin is responsible for good also, as hard it is to believe. But it's because of his actions over there that we are here tonight. It has brought our communities together. And we are most grateful to you, Rabbi Cohen. You were the first to reach out to the Ukrainian community with your lovely letter of sympathy when the war started. Jesus, in his Sermon on the Mount, said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Today we are peacemakers. Scripture, the Psalms 132/33. "Behold how good and how pleasant it is when we dwell in unity." How blessed we are tonight to be able to come together, to listen to your kind words of sympathy and sincere words. And our community is most grateful. Both countries, Ukraine and Israel, are targeted for destruction. The neighbors of Israel want to wipe it off the face of the earth. The neighbor of Ukraine wants to do the same. They tell us that we have no right to exist as a nation. My first parish was in Maplewood, New Jersey. Heavy Jewish community. I attended my first Seder in Maplewood. And after a while, the community, the Jewish community and Christian community, decided that they want to hold an annual service in May. I don't know why they chose May, but May was the month for the Holocaust to be commemorated in Maplewood, South Orange. And it was always held in a Christian church because the purpose was for the Christians to remember the Holocaust. And the theme repeated over and over and over again: never again. Never again will the world allow such genocide. We, the Ukrainian people, know the horror of genocide. For 8 years before the Holocaust, 6 to 10 million people perished in Stalin's man-made famine, Holodomor. The peasants, the plain people, the people of the land were told that it does not belong to them anymore. And they were starved to death. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church was liquidated in the 1920s. The intellectuals, the same. And less than 10 years later, Hitler and the Nazis wanted to destroy the Jewish people. We know what suffering is, both communities. And we have to repeat those words over and over again to our American friends: never again. A year ago, nonstop coverage on CNN and Fox and BBC. And after a year, people began to forget. And it troubles me greatly when we hear radio commentators, TV commentators, politicians. How much longer are we going to support this war? We have nothing to do with Ukraine. It's not a part of our plan in this country. What happened to the words "never again"? No one did anything when the Ukrainians starved because they said they didn't know. The same thing when the Jewish people were rounded up in the countries around Germany. We didn't know. But we know today because of the media that instantly covered. We must be together. When I was in Ukraine, I visited Babyn Yar, and we had a prayer at that horrible spot that they claim 100,000 people were sacrificed. Last evening, there was a beautiful concert at the Parma Library, and the theme was, "Let us not forget." And I'm just reading a little bit from the program. Tonight, we perform songs born of this war, reflecting the feelings and experience of Ukrainian mothers who will tragically not see their sons ever again. Ukrainian soldiers who, while holding photographs of their loving wives and children close to their hearts, engage in deadly battles for freedom and independence each day. The world has no right to get used to war in Ukraine. On this anniversary, everyone should remember that thousands of people's lives have already been crippled by the war, and no one knows how many more there will be. but it is known for sure that unity, brotherhood, and support will lead Ukraine and the entire civilized world to victory. The Ukrainians do not know the word surrender. It is not part of their vocabulary, just like the Jewish people in Israel don't know that word. Because when they surrender, they cease to exist on earth. We have a faith, a strong faith, that God will be there after all of those atrocities. He will be triumphant. The Second World War, Rabbi Cohen showed me your book of remembrance. 700 soldiers were from this congregation. I hope when you pass that book that you bow head in prayer. My home parish in Scranton, Pennsylvania, 300 men went to the Second World War. My father was a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, stationed in Europe. The same from my parish in Parma. 4 men never returned, and we commemorate their memory every spring for Memorial Day. I encourage you to remind your children, your grandchildren, of that book that's in your vestibule. Never forget the supreme sacrifices that men and women paid for our freedom. President Zelensky spoke to the United National Prayer breakfast that was held a few weeks ago, the first Thursday of February. These are his words. If you recall the Psalms of David, you will pay attention to how often they ask the Lord to hear their prayers. And that's why in harsh times, when we lose loved ones, when people lose their children, which is the worst thing, when life is at risk, when a criminal war is conducted against your people, faith may stagger. It happens that people think that God doesn't hear and will not hear prayer. And it is important for us as leaders of nations to resist despair. But you, O Lord, are shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I lie down and I sleep and I wake again, because the Lord sustains me. Though an army encamps against me, my heart shall never fear. We believe in God. We do not allow despair. Thanks to the bravery of our soldiers, thanks to the help of friends of freedom around the world, the leaders of those countries who support us, and people who help us. I thank you all, America. Thank you all, friends in the world, for waking up together last year. We stand together, and we must do everything we can do together so that next year, on the first day of February, we will be able to pray simply with thanks for the obtained salvation from evil. May the Lord protect you all. President Volodymyr Zelensky. Just a comment. We look at the Lord, what he does in mysterious ways. Whoever would have thought a Jewish president of Ukraine is directing this movement of freedom? Truly, God works in mysterious ways. I'm telling you. And you know, when a politician wins, he has 51% of the vote, and he'll say in his speech, of acceptance, well, you gave me a mandate. 70% of Ukraine gave Volodymyr Zelensky the mandate. And I conclude, 2 weeks ago I was on a cruise in the Atlantic, and I attended the Shabbat service on the ship. If you go on cruises, they have them every Friday. I met people from Argentina, from Mexico City, from Ukraine, one gentleman. I met a Laura from from Cleveland Heights or University Heights. She went to Chicago to school, and then she married a man, and she lives in Chicago. Maybe some of you may know her. And she said, my husband follows the Orthodox tradition, but I am the Reformed. And I said, is that like a Democrat wife and a Republican husband in the home? And she smiled. And at the end, I took 2 yarmulkes, one white, one black. And at the end, I spoke to a gentleman from Mexico City. He spoke Spanish, his language, and he helped me, and I don't know if this is going to make any sense. Toga alazmana Hashem yefarech otchem, shalom lachem beshalom lekol aloam. Shabbat Shalom. May God bless you. Thank you so much.
I think this deserves a translation for those who might not understand the Hebrew. Toda.
It's written in Ukrainian.
It's written so. Thank you. Thank you. What did you say? Toda?
Hashem. Oh, Allah's Machan.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for inviting us. And
Hashem yefarech otchem.
May our God, the name of our God, bless us.
Shalom lachem.
Peace unto us, peace unto you.
Beshalom.
Yes.
Lekol haolam.
And may peace come to the entire world.